Hello, everybody. I don't know if you've wondered where I've been, but I got COVID. It was super mild, no worries, but I did take some time off to kind of recoup. For future reference, Omicron can exhibit as nonstop vomiting for like 2 solid days and nothing else. So while it was extremely minor, thankfully, I did spend my 10-day quarantine at my parents' and I read a book, which is good because my numbers for 2021 reading got nowhere close to my Goodreads goal, which was mildly embarrassing. I always try to achieve a certain goal, and it really didn't happen this year, like not even close. So it was a good last week entry, and it actually turned out to be one of my favorite books of the year, and that is Tacky by Rax King. I loved this book. It is a series of short essays about Rax King's life and how they intertwine with pieces of popular culture that she was consuming at the time. So there's chapters on the Jersey Shore, The Sims, Meatloaf, rest in peace, Josie and the Pussycats, and others. And it got me to thinking, because while she does use good examples of things that are considered tacky in popular culture, what is the definition of tacky? And I wound up actually, because I was reading it at my dad's, having discussions about camp and kitsch and how it actually relates to those. So today I'm going to kind of go through what the definition of tacky is, how we compare that to camp and kitsch. And to do that, I'm going to head over here to my wall and we're going to go through some examples together. All right, so right before we start, I want to get a broad definition of our three terms, tacky, camp, and kitsch, kind of on paper before we start. So while all of them are kind of an I know it when I see it situation, it's good to have kind of a general idea of what we're talking about here. So tacky is probably the hardest to pin down because it's so subjective, but it is generally defined as not having good taste. So it's kind of defined by the lack of something. In this case, the lack of taste. And taste is also hard to define because it's basically, it changes, it fluctuates. What is in good taste is kind of what the whole of society deems to be of good taste, but that is also passed down from people who make taste, so like people who write articles in magazines about what's in and what's out, that kind of thing. So it really is subjected to the person. So on our scale here, we're going to be using as our y-axis, we got tacky, affectionate, and tacky, derogatory. Anything that is in the middle, not tacky at all. This is tacky, but in like a fun way, and this is completely objective to me. So apologies, yours might be different. And then tacky, derogatory, as in tacky, I hate it. Now kitsch is our second term. It's a bit clearer to define because it definitely brings a more specific aesthetic to mind. But its definition also crosses over with tacky's in that it is something that appeals to popular taste. Now, because of that, it also, like tacky, changes from decade to decade. Now, as I was reading Tacky and talking to my parents about it, I actually, where did I put it? Oh, also picked up a book that my mom had lying around the house, The Artificial Kingdom, The Kitsch, A Treasury of the Kitsch Experience by Celeste Olalquiaga, who I believe is Chilean. And this kind of goes into the history of kitsch and really kind of dives down into why it is more of a modern phenomenon. So it's kind of these little objects, they're physical objects basically, that are made wholesale, but sometimes with like minor variations. We'll get to the examples, but like the one that really comes to mind usually is like garden gnomes. A modern example I will be using, Funko Pops. So it's that kind of ugly but mass-produced collectible. And we'll get into that, but collecting is a huge part of the kitsch movement. There are also some artists who try to reclaim the word kitsch and make it into more of a high fashion statement. So Jeff Koons, he will also be on the chopping block. And I do want to note, this is the book I mostly refer to when looking at kitsch. There is a very famous 1939 essay by Clement Greenberg from about kitsch. It's the avant-garde in kitsch. And quite honestly, I read it and it is very boring. So I'm not really going to use that a lot His basic premise is that the avant-garde arises as a defense against aesthetic standards declining because of mass production. So personally, I think that assigning kitsch as a decline of moral or like aesthetic standards when it is because kitsch gave so many people the accessibility of privatized collections, which were happening in the aristocracy and the rich, you can get in some hot water if you're like, and that's because the poors don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And also, just in general, kitsch has kind of changed already a lot from 1939. So I salute you, Greenberg. I see you. Not going to be using your essay a lot here. Now, camp is probably the easiest to examine out of all three concepts because it's been the subject of a lot of academic study over the years, and it's also the one that, because of its form, is the easiest to kind of spot. So camp, it comes from certain words. It's kind of fluid. It could come from the French se camper, which is like posing up, and then it would come from kind of the idea of the French aristocracy or French underground scene. It's kind of mixed. It really comes into terms. It is cemented by Susan Sontag in her 1964 essay, Notes on Camp. You may have also remembered a few years ago, the Met Gala was camp themed, and we'll be seeing an example from that later on. But what I kind of want to specify here is camp is something that needs to be performed. It's something that has an audience. So I know camp it's a mode of aestheticism, so it can technically be anything, but the things that I find are easiest to define as camp are performance-based. So it's movies, it's music, it's something that is meant to be seen and reacted to. So whereas kitsch can kind of just be an object on its own, camp kind of needs context and someone to look at it for it to be recognized as camp, which is probably why camp, I think a lot of the times nowadays, is kind of more seen as to movies, because they're very good examples of campy acting. So a shortened definition for camp, because it's also like all the others, I know it when I see it, but it can be, and then Susan Sontag's essay, she has a lot of bullet points of examples of what camp is, but it is something that is very artificial. It kind of spits in the face of naturalism, and it is over the top, it is pushed to the extreme, and it kind of mixes both high and low culture. So what we're going to be using it as our x-axis, I guess. We have camp naive and camp deliberate. Now, this is an important distinction because camp can be done consciously or not. And so unconsciously, camp naive is when someone's trying to do something and it fails so badly that it becomes camp. So I would say, I mean, we'll get into it, but like when someone tries to make a movie and it fails at everything, and then it becomes a masterpiece because everyone's like, how did you do so badly? Camp naive. Camp deliberate, honestly, less easy to do, because a lot of the times, and this is an aspect of Susan Sontag's essay, when you try to be camp, you fail at being camp. So I have a series of examples, and I'm going to be placing them along our axis. And kind of what I want to do with this is to both get an idea of what we can describe as either tacky camp, and there's going to be kitsch. I would have described it as a z-axis, but I can't do that here. So hypothetically, there's a z-axis. I might just mark a little K on the corner of the cards as I mark them up. But camp can, or kitsch, since it's basically a commodified object, it can kind of appear in every section. And like I said, this axis is going to be a little more objective, but tacky affectionate and tacky derogatory, that's completely my opinion. So like, I'm sorry, you're just gonna have to deal. Our first example we have here, and I'm sorry, I started off on a controversial one. It's Disney adults, so Disney slash Marvel adults. So apologies to my Disney adults. I'm gonna count you Marvel fans in here. Y'all a little tacky. I'm gonna say you're naive camp, but not too much, because honestly, you're not that campy. But I'm gonna say tacky, derogatory, a little bit affectionate, a little bit naive. No. Well, the thing is, you're not camp, but you're definitely naive, so I'll just put you kind of smack dab there. Once again, apologies. Don't worship the mouse. My thing is, like, God, I wish I enjoyed anything as much as you enjoy Disney, but as someone who has never been to a park, wait, no, I went to Euro Disney one time. As someone who is from New York City and lives so far away, and also the concept of doing Disney trips was like really out of bounds as a, you know, a poor child, I don't understand you. I don't, and you honestly kind of scare me. Okay, our second example. We got garden gnomes. Okay, so full transparency, I worked as an art editor on my college's lit mag, and it was called Kitsch, and our mascot was a little garden gnome. So I drew a garden gnome on at least one cover. So I'm going to say tacky affectionate, because honestly, those garden gnomes ain't hurting nobody. They're just kind of ugly. And then camp. The thing is, at the beginning, because garden gnomes kind of rose into popularity as objects, commercialized objects, the early 1900s, but they really took off post Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, 1939. So in that way, they're kind of related to Disney adults, but less so because these are actual folkloric creatures. So I'm going to say they started off camp naive because that was just a thing. Now, they're kind of not camp. They're kind of just a thing that you find at Hobby Lobby, but they can still be campified. So I'm going to say a little bit of camp naive and tacky affectionate. So we're veering very close to the center. I'm very excited to reach these outmost corners. This one might do it. So we have Kim Petras, Coconuts, 2021. An iconic song that we all love and know. And not just me, because I'm on TikTok a lot. So this is definitely going in tacky affectionate. If you are not familiar with the song, the lyrics go, "My coconuts, you can put them in your mouth right now, right now, right now, right now." So tacky affectionate, and then definitely deliberate camp. She knows what she's doing. She's an icon. She's a queen. This is actually another thing. I kind of want to see which square vibes with me the most. It's probably going to be on the top here because it's tacky affectionate, so it's going to be things I love. But I'm actually not sure if I will have more love overall for camp deliberate or camp naive. So that's going to be something we get to see today. Okay, our next example. This is maybe the most cited example of camp you can find, and it is the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Now, the original stage production, 1970s, then the movie, also in the 70s. Just an iconic moment. It really represents something where all people can kind of come together and experience camp as one. It's kind of a safe space for dressing up, maybe trying out some new things. It has aged, but it has a huge part of people discovering who they are and kind of just celebrating the weird, the wonderful. First half of that musical, numbers absolutely slap. It does fall off a little bit in the second half in terms of the songs everyone knows, but honestly, it's iconic. We love it. So I'm going to say, this is hard though. I have read interviews like recently with Richard O'Brien, who made the movie. I can't, not sure where I'd put it on the camp. Definitely put it, it's a little tacky, but it's not super tacky. I'm going to say camp, naive, a little bit on the tacky side, because I do think that the people, like they knew it was campy, but they really put their heart and soul into it, and they weren't intending to make it a kind of camp classic. So, Camp Naive. Okay, so this example is actually one of Susan Sontag's in her essay. And this is one thing where I want to talk about how camp ages a little bit, because she uses a lot of ballet and opera as examples of camp in her essay. And honestly, that may have made sense in the 60s. At this point, camp, the ballet isn't a good example anymore. I think the ballet can be camp, but just a ballet as a whole, because her example is Swan Lake, Tchaikovsky. I think it can be camp, but as a whole, if you can't just be like, all opera is camp. I've sat through so much opera. God, I wish it was camp. Some of it is just boring. So that's something where I think we're going to have to put it very close to true neutral, because I don't think it's camp. It can be, but I don't think it usually is. And honestly, it's not that tacky either. So it's kind of just going to sit on the line of like slight camp, no tacky. However, my next example, Barbie of Swan Lake from 2003. Now that shit's camp. And that kind of comes down to presentation. It comes down to the animation being god-awful. It comes down to everything about the intended product. And yes, I will say, I did look at it recently, and the character designs on the villains is lightly anti-Semitic, but the overall product still holds up. So I'm going to say very tacky, affectionate. The animation, while I remembered it being good, it is not. So tacky, affectionate, and definitely camp naive. It is just something very cozy about those movies. All right. Our next one, a controversial one. It's Jeff Koons, he of the giant inflatable dog sculptures. So Jeff Koons is an artist. He was born in 1955. Oh God, I wrote dead, not yet. Jeff Koons' whole thing is he kind of uses pop culture and kitsch objects and makes them into these big stainless steel sculptures. And while I hypothetically, like on paper, understand that that's what he's doing, I hate his execution, and I think everything he's done is ugly. So he's going in the tacky derogatory and camp deliberate, I think, because he does, well, no, I wouldn't necessarily call it camp, but he knows what he's doing, and he goes to the corner of shame. If you are at all invested in memes on Twitter and the Met Gala at all, you've probably seen this tweet. It's "Looking Camp Right in the Eye" by Carly Kloss. Twitter, May 6, 2019. So on the eve of the Met Gala, or was the day of, a couple hours before going to the Met Gala, Carly Kloss tweeted this with a picture of herself looking at an eye in a mirror. We're like, oh my God, what's her outfit? What look is she going for? It was the most boring ass dress I've ever seen. Now, this is going to be a rough one, because the tweet itself, not camp at all. Dead center. However, it was slightly tacky, so I'd put it here. However, the reception, it has become a meme, so now I'd call it camp, because it was so bad it kind of looped around to being camp. So I'm going to put it where like the original tweet is, which is lightly tacky, not camp at all. In practice, though, the meme version of this, it is camp. Are most memes camp? Anyways. Okay, this next one. Funko Pops. So this is kind of a stand-in for collector culture in the modern era. So I would say this and like Beanie Babies are examples of things where they're definitely kitsch, because it's a collectible item that the whole purpose of it, like my buddy Celeste says in the Kitsch, The Artificial Kingdom, like in the Victorian era and then the 1900s, kitsch is often used as a collectible of slight variations. So she uses the example of these paperweights that the author Colette collected. So here's a picture of Colette and her paperweights. Now, an important thing about this, the paperweights themselves kind of completely lost their value. She talks about buying them for like $1 at a market and just kind of hoarding them. But these objects, they gain their value through collections and displays. That's kind of the whole purpose of them, is they're not necessarily individually valuable, but as a whole, they are either valuable for you aesthetically as like a thing you can show off, or they're valuable as a collection item because you have all of them. So that's kind of the thing with Beanie Babies too. People hoarded them, they bought like every single one hoping that they would eventually inflate in prices, and they didn't. It's kind of known as like a big bust nowadays, and I also do see that happening with Funko Pops. And I'm not going to talk about NFTs, but y'all keep getting screwed into spending your money on things that will not get you money. So Funko Pops, definitely naive, y'all. This is going to have some crossover with Disney adults. And I'm going to say I'm not as ashamed. Tacky derogatory. Spend your money on better things or take them out the box. Our next one, we have a series of directors coming up, so that's where we are. John Waters. Literally everything the man touches, camp. He is the gayest man, and he worked on things like movies like Cry Baby, Pink Flamingos, the original Hairspray, the non-musical one. Everything he touches is camp. It's deliberate, but it's good. Because John Waters is a person who knows that what he does is silly, but he tries to make it as silly as possible. So honestly, much love to him. Born in 1946, he's still alive. He's never gonna die. In my heart, knocking on wood. John Waters lives forever. I just remembered what my next director is. It's Werner Herzog. So I have no explanation for this apart from the fact that I deeply love Werner Herzog, and he is more and more becoming a meme. So the whole...
I would like to see the baby.
Just realizing this is very left side heavy right now. Well, oh God, is he camp? Is he camp? Is he... Why did I make this list? Okay, so Werner Herzog is interesting because I believe he himself is very true to himself. He's just a very monotone German man. However, he is so easy to do an impression of, and he chooses topics that are so strange, and he gets involved in projects like this, The Mandalorian, where he becomes this kind of camp figure. It is very easy. Like my example is like most things could be camp. You could incredibly easy do drag of Werner Herzog. Because he knows what he's doing. I would say he's in camp naive. He's not that tacky. I'll just put him right along here. And him and John Waters are friends, which I love. Now, Anna Biller is the director of The Love Witch. I couldn't figure out when she was born, so she's just a question mark. I love this woman. She definitely knows her camp. She definitely knows her tacky. She definitely knows her kitsch. She, I saw an interview with her on the Criterion Collection where she discusses using, what's it called? Boudin with, Brigitte Bardot? Anyways, the Boudin musical movie, which, God, that's camp. And everything she does in like The Love Witch, it's very artificial, but in a very specific, colorful, beautiful Technicolor way. So I definitely would put her, blue eyeshadow, definitely a thing in her movies. So I would say she's camp, deliberate. Love this woman. Cannot wait for her next feature. Okay, so this next one is one criticism of Susan Sontag, especially today, is that she kind of glosses over some aspects of camp that are not unique to her. What I mean by that, she talks about LGBT representation and how camp kind of comes out of a queer culture. However, she does make the statement that if it weren't for homosexuals, camp would still have arisen. I honestly don't know about that. So in this, oh god, I really just grabbed this off of, I grabbed it off of JSTOR. So this person's honor project, thank you, I used it, from Seattle Pacific University, From Marginal to Mainstream, The Queer History of Camp Aesthetics. Camp aesthetics were used as a way to kind of get by undercover in society at a time where being gay was legal. So you could kind of dress up in a certain way. She uses little sailor outfits as a way to signal to other gay people that you were, but as a way to kind of pass under the authorities' noses. So they wouldn't be able to arrest you unless they caught you doing gay shit, but you could kind of still be like a wink wink nod nod to your fellow gays. And so that is something where the camp aesthetic has so much to do with queer culture, but it also has a lot to do with Black culture and Black queer culture specifically. This one, because I saw an episode of We Are the Champions on Netflix on it, and that is the Bronner Brothers Hair and Beauty show from 1947 to present, specifically talking about the fantasy section, but probably the whole thing. It is deliberate camp, because the whole point is to present an aestheticized version of something that is out of this world, something you would never see before. This is lightly tacky, but affectionate. And so kind of the whole point of the competition is you have like an hour, you gotta make something incredible, astounding, never seen before, never done again. So I would definitely say it's deliberate camp. And it's also, there's a lot of glitter and stuff, so I'm gonna say it's a little tacky, but like not too much, because it's still fashion. But yeah, going extreme modes now, we got an extremely derogatory one, toddlers and tiaras, the whole fucking show. Extremely tacky, derogatory, and I think it's deliberate camp on the part of everybody at TLC, but I hate it, so I'm just gonna... Basically, children beauty pageants. That's camp. I don't like it. It's technically camp. Up next, we got a couple of art history examples. So starting with, we have the artist and illustrator Norman Rockwell. So he was kind of popular around the 1930s, 1940s. I think he's remembered as kind of a very specific era. I would designate his art as the kind that you might see in your dentist's office and or your grandmother's. So in that way, tacky. However, I am a firm Norman Rockwell apologist in that I think he is an incredible illustrator. He knows what he's doing, so in that way, deliberate. However, his skill is incredible, and I would say that while on the whole he kind of tries to present these images of a wholesome America, a unified America, often a white America, he did, especially in his later years, because he died in the 70s, but he was born in 1894, so like he's literally born in the 19th century. And he did make art that kind of spoke to more political movements later in his life, but I think he's more well known for his images of white America. So in that way, I can understand why people think he's tacky. However, I have an incredible amount of affection for this man on pure skill level alone. And he honestly, well, I'm going to put him right there. Incredible artist in his own right. I wish I saw more of his art in museums. Man. You're not seeing this art in museums, though. You got Norman Rockwell's predecessor, J.C. Leyendecker. Now this is interesting, because while they kind of immediately follow each other with like a little bit of overlap in, I believe, the 30s, Leyendecker is remembered in a completely different way because he was a queer artist. He's born in Germany, I believe, in the 1870s. So he had like a 20-year delay off of Norman Rockwell, but they both worked for the Evening Post, I believe, as cover illustrators. So he's kind of known for this specific aesthetic kind of man. A lot of his drawings are kind of this like big square jaw, square shoulders, kind of art sharp in an Art Deco type of sense. He does have the kind of aesthetic and illustrative smoothness that a Norman Rockwell does, but like a little more angular because it predecesses kind of, yeah, it's transitioning from the Art Deco into a modern era. I would compare him, honestly, aesthetically, he brings to mind in subject Tom of Finland, who I didn't motor card on, but spiritually kind of the same thing. His illustrations of, you know, I would say Leyendecker is the forefront of Tom of Finland, whereas Tom of Finland is like definitely queer men in the illustrations. They're dressed in leather. They're often in states of undress. J.C. Leyendecker definitely had to go more undercover, so he's like, they're just sharply dressed men, just hanging out, just making eye contact, just looking at each other.
What's better than this? Guys being dudes.
So, I don't know if I would call it, well, no, it's camp. I don't know if I would call it deliberate or naive. No, this is deliberate. I'll put him up here. I would definitely check out his art if I were you. So I've got a kind of random entry. Not really sure what was going through my mind at this point. I got Mothman. Where the fuck do I put Mothman? This is kind of like the Carly Kloss where I'm like, the original? The cryptid Mothman? Or our image of Mothman? I mean, I have Mothman merch. I'm literally... I drink from a Mothman mug. Where the fuck do I put Mothman? Is Mothman camp? Mothman is camp. But is Mothman... Whoever... Those people who first met Mothman, who, it's definitely an owl, y'all found an owl, they definitely weren't intending him to become a camp icon. But like Elvis Presley, you can now get married by Mothman. So I'm going to put him in Tacky, Affectionate, and Camp Naive. God, I love Mothman. Okay, we got a couple of historic examples here. We got our forefront of camp, Oscar Wilde. Now he is a Susan Sontag example. And he is one of her older historic examples that I think holds up today. Oscar Wilde, very deliberate camp. Not that tacky, so I'll put him up here. He, queer figure, went to jail for being gay, never stopped being gay, made countless quotes about, just shitting on people. God, he was an icon. And his plays are also very campy, so I'm going to say he's very deliberately camp. And he kind of comes out of this mode of aestheticism of over-the-top dandyism. Like, he definitely dresses in a way that's like, it reads as camp then and it reads as camp now, which is honestly kind of impressive because a lot of things from that era kind of just read as like, it's ugly. But like, he dressed in a way that was kind of weird for the time, but now it completely reads. So trendsetter, honestly. All right, up next. It's the French monarchy. Rest in piss. I'm going to be extremely derogatory towards the French monarchy. I have opinions about other monarchies that are currently still in place today, but specifically the French monarchy because I am French and I learned all about them in school and they're all dead, so no one can fight me about it. They fucking sucked. The monarchies in general, well, let's not even get into that. It's on a pure aesthetic level, these people had too much money and they didn't know what to do with it. They made ugly shit. You know what, honestly, Versailles has its moments. On the whole, a tackier place I've never seen. They all shitted in the corners because they didn't figure out bathrooms. It was disgusting. Marie Antoinette, I could have put her in her own section. She literally made her a cosplay village so she could pretend to be like a poor peasant lady. But her version of poor peasant was like a big poofy white dress and strawberries, eaten fresh. So like honestly, rest in piss, French monarchy. We don't miss you. Get lost. Okay. It's going to be another two-parter. We got Cats the Musical.
Meow.
Is going right there. I have affection for it. It's stupid, but I love it. Now, however, Cats, the 2019 film. Actually, I don't even consider this camp because it could have been camp, I think, but it just winds up being awful. So it's going, well, it tries to be a little camp. So it's going right there. Little bit of camp, attempted to be deliberate, but it's extremely tacky and ugly. Honestly, I'm really not sure who keeps giving Tom Hooper movie musicals. I'm not sure who made the decision of like, yeah, let's take away this very stylized camp outfits and let's make it a horrible CGI nightmare. I don't want to see creepy CGI people rubbing up on each other. Not in that context. This next one's a big one. It's all of professional wrestling. I got into a weird deep dive of this a couple years ago because I've never met people growing up. Like, I just wasn't in contact with people who watched professional wrestling, so I kind of only knew of it secondhand through, like, I don't know, Scooby-Doo specials and stuff. So I kind of went on a deep dive in the history of it and what's currently happening with the WWE and the AEW and all of that. And what the fuck is this? It is incredible. This is drag for men. I forgot to mention it at any other point because I didn't go into this with notes because I'm a genius. But part of camp is both kind of androgyny in terms of displaying both female and male aesthetics. So you see this with pop stars like David Bowie and Elton John, who kind of mix female, male dress, design, fashion. But there's also a part of camp that takes it to the other extreme, which is hyper performance of gender. So you see that in drag with usually hyper femininity. There's also drag kings, but I don't know of them as much. I would consider the other extreme for it, extreme masculine presentation is actually wrestling. So in that way, camp is kind of the other extreme of the gender spectrum from drag, so it makes sense that it appeals to the same people, and there is a small overlap of fans, but I would consider it as the mode of gender performance that is acceptable to kind of more of a heteronormative part of society. I fucking love it. Now I am going to say it's a little bit tacky derogatory because bad things happening in that industry. However, very deliberate camp. It's beautiful. I love things where extremely straight men can, feel emotions and be sad about things. Okay, so we got one from the archives. It is early Kesha. Honestly, those first few albums, iconic. Now, at the time, would have said camp naive because it kind of did seem like she was sincere in it. We now know that the whole thing was a sham. And, fuck Dr. Luke. However, early Kesha, some bops, some jams.
Tonight we're going hard, just like the world is ours, we're tearing it apart, we're superstars, we are who we are.
And so she goes in camp deliberate and tacky affectionate. Right next to Kim Petras, actually. Y'all be friends up here. Our next example, we got Moulin Rouge, the film. I've not seen the musical, nor do I really care to. I would say, as with many things that Baz Luhrmann does, camp deliberate. However, well, I'm going to say tacky, affectionate. Now, Baz Luhrmann's The Great Gatsby, tacky derogatory. Moulin Rouge, though, tacky affectionate. He didn't go too far. Any movie that has a Toulouse-Lautrec stand-in, you're good in my book. All right. It's Celine Dion. Where does she go on the scale? Is Celine Dion tacky? I guess Celine Dion's a little tacky. I wanted to let me listen to My Heart Will Go On growing up because she hated it so much. So I'm going to say she's a little tacky, but she's... Do I feel a little bad that I just put her next to Garden Gnomes? Maybe a little. But oh well. Okay. Now this one might actually be a debate. Okay. I'm going to need a coffee break first. All right. Artist Thomas Kincaid. Now, this man's name may not be familiar to you, but you've probably seen his art somewhere before. According to him, at some point in the last 20 years, he was the most collected artist in America. He's known as the painter of light. He has these kind of very, I don't know how to describe it, but his art looks conservative. It looks Midwest and conservative, and I'm not saying that in a nice way. He's going in tacky derogatory for sure. But he's kind of a mystery. He is no longer alive. He died in 2012. And so that kind of changed my opinion. A lot of think pieces were written kind of around that time. And it kind of turned into this whole thing where people were like, his art is ugly. And then people being like, but his art is popular with the poor. And if you say his art is ugly, you're saying you hate the poor. Which honestly, if Tumblr had gotten in on that argument, would have been awful. But it's hard to tell if it's camp naive or camp deliberate, because while I think because you can see his early paintings, they weren't the kind of kitschy paintings that they wound up being. So he definitely wound up in a deliberate, like, well, this is what sells, I'm going to make this. But while people on his side argue that what he does is real art, and if you don't like it, then you're just an elitist, I went on his website, and they're selling signed art of his for The Mandalorian. Once again, he died in 2012, so this is someone who is doing art in his style for present-day Disney things and selling them with his signature on them, which to me, extremely derogatory. Do I hate Thomas Kincaid more than I hate Jeff Koons? Now that is actually an interesting question. Yeah, I do. Oh, he wound up too far down. Okay, I'll put him up here. Not to say that, like, I hate popular style. It's just this kind of art makes me want to vomit. And it is also something where you can look at the art he does. It is both extremely religious and extremely corporate. So he does paintings of like the same forest with Jesus walking through it, and then the same forest and it's like Cinderella, Disney Cinderella walking through it. And that exact combination just like kind of rubs me the wrong way. I'm like, ugh, ugly. This is a market. He made these to sell, not to do art. And in that way, I will allow myself to be elitist and say it's fucking ugly. However, for the people, I got Bob Ross. Now, Bob Ross is a good version of Thomas Kincaid. He does similar kind of like landscapes. They can look tacky at first glance. However, the man loves what he does. Well, loved. He died in 1995. Oh, wrist. So like, if you look at his paintings on their own, they're kind of tacky. However, well, yeah, I'll put him here. However, he does it out of pure love of the game, pure love of art, and because a lot of his paintings, he made the art of painting. He walks you through how to make them yourself. He's a good version. He's not trying to sell you anything. I refuse to watch that Bob Ross documentary because I know it'll make me sad. He didn't try to sell me anything. He just wanted you to be able to paint. So God bless him, Bob. Rest in piss, Thomas Kincaid. If you are a member of the Thomas Kincaid family, I'm very sorry. I'm very sorry. It's just my opinion. I forgot I wrote this one. It's just Las Vegas. All of it. The Strip, the Elvises, the whole deal is what I wrote on here. Okay, so this one's going to be rough because Vegas was definitely designed to be tacky and like shitty, but it also definitely, God, that shit's marketable. So I'm going to say deliberate camp. I mean, there's parts of Vegas culture that I respect. Like, its commitment to keeping Elvis alive. I can kind of get into that. The Magic Mike shows, I can kind of get into that. Still overall, tacky derogatory. Apologies. We got another historic entry, and it's Lord Byron from 1788 to 1824. Now, while I personally am a fan of all his antics because they are extremely funny to think about, he may have slept with his sister. He, had a part in Frankenstein happening in that he kidnapped the Shelleys, and brought them to Italy, which, because of the sleeping with his sister, allegedly. But as a whole, I'm going to say he's tacky, derogatory, and he was very aware of his image. So he's going in camp deliberate. But he is that is a campy man. Okay. The Eurovision Song Contest. I was born in 1956, and honestly, it is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen, and I love it to fucking death. So it's going full tacky affectionate. That's the thing. I want to put it at both at the extreme of camp naive and camp deliberate. I'd say at this point, it's like the pinnacle of camp deliberate, because the whole thing is a fucking show at this point. Like, it's just insane. It was created as a way to bring together the countries of Europe post World War II, and it has now become just the opportunity to do the weirdest shit you've ever seen. Although, this year's going to be weird because Russia and Ukraine usually both participate. Oh god, okay. Also, Israel has been competing for a couple decades, and that's weird to me. Although Australia is not competing anymore. Okay, we're kind of getting near to the end, but we got a couple of big contenders. We got Cher, born in 1946. Goddamn. Okay, Cher. She got to go in camp deliberate. She's got to go in, well, lightly tacky. I'm gonna put her just right there. Honestly, well, she'll go with Anna Biller. She's lightly tacky, very deliberate. Then we got the great Meatloaf. I didn't know he was an anti-vaxxer until he died, and someone told me. So, like, that part's sad. However, I'm gonna not consider that part and just consider the everything else about it. Now that man. Okay, here's the problem. I'm not sure how he falls on the camp scale. He's got to have known how weird and like niche his shit was. However, he was so sincere with it. Oh, well, I forgot I put the Rocky Horror Picture Show in here, and he's literally in that, so I'm going to just plop him right next to that. I'm going to put it lightly tackier because, God, that man was tacky. I would also, in memoriam, like to read the opener of the last chapter in Rax King's Tacky, which is about Meatloaf. And it is a chapter, It's Time to Let Meatloaf Into Your Embarrassing Little Heart. Within 10 minutes of opening his 1977 album, Bat Out of Hell, here are the feelings that performer Meatloaf has already felt to completion. Desire, anguish, desperation, perfect adolescent faith in the attachments of the flesh. Motorcycle. Not classically a feeling, no, but what else can be said about the lyric, I'm gonna hit the highway like a battering ram on a silver-black phantom bike, except that it encapsulates the feeling of motorcycle. That is to say, motorcycle qua motorcycle, the Springsteenian motorcycle, the emblem of masculine longing to get out. Read this book. So I actually had forgotten about this one until I randomly was looking something up because I saw it was making a comeback, and I realized they're coming out with like a 25th anniversary edition, and your girl pre-ordered one already. It's the Tamagotchi. I lost one in my dad's apartment one time, and it was very sad, and I couldn't hear its little beeping anymore, but it's definitely dead by now. So Tamagotchi is kind of tacky. I'm gonna say camp naive because honestly, it was just a fun little game where you keep your little creature alive, and then it turned into a hoarding situation. So in that way, it's like the good version of a Funko Pop. However, I'm going to say Tamagotchis are good because you actually get to interact with them and play with them. And I knew people who had like 5 of them on one key ring and were just keeping those bitches alive like it was their goddamn job. And honestly, an amazing thing for teenagers to do. I look forward very much. I think the 25th anniversary is coming up in March. Look very much to getting my new baby. I have something to live for. I don't know if anyone was waiting for this, but it's Lady Gaga, 1986 present. Definitely Camp Deliberate. I'm noticing a lot of like hyperpop current icons in this corner, the Camp Deliberate Tacky Affectionate corner, which is probably just my taste. But also, I do think it has to do with pop artists who cater to the gay community specifically know what their bread and butter is. Which is why I think you see Cher, you see Kim Petras, early Kesha, and I'm going to put Lady Gaga. Honestly, she's not that tacky, so I'm going to just kind of slip her next to Oscar Wilde. But like there's a sweet spot around here where it's like, yeah, it's bad, but that's what makes it good. I do think that the sweet spot also around here, but it's kind of a difference between marketing, because this is very good for like instant popularity. It's harder to do Camp Naive than Camp Deliberate, is what I'm saying in this day and age. All right. Kind of in the vein of Funko Pops, Tamagotchis, and the Garden Gnome, we got troll dolls. Definitely less common now than they were in like the 80s, but they are still like visually iconic, huge and kitsch. Honestly, they freak me out a little, so I'm going to put them in tacky derogatory and camp. Well, I believe they were designed to be off-putting, and in that way I would say Camp Deliberate. Well, yeah, I'll put it right down here, along with Las Vegas. Honestly, kind of beautiful. They belong together. Oh God. I got Glee the show. Oh God. Where the fuck? Okay, one second.
You can't hit me. Well, sure I can, unless you got yourself knocked up again, slut. Stop the violence.
Hey, what is this? What happened to Miss Beta family? Hey!
Oh, please. She has a family. She's a mother.
Glee is all things. I think actually that's a pretty good example. Glee is like, if you consider it a circle of camp and tacky, Glee is somehow at the extreme of all of them. It's kind of beautiful. There are moments in Glee that are tacky affectionate and kind of naive in its campness. Camp naive, derogatory. Camp Deliberate, very fun. Camp Deliberate, absolutely fucking awful. In that way, Glee is the epicenter of all things. And just the most of everything. I haven't got like a true neutral. Problem is with this is like anything could be camp if you try hard enough. So there's nothing that's like, I'm not going to call it camp at all. Or tacky. I don't know, like bread. It's our last 2 options, guys. This has been fun. I look forward to looking at the final project and trying to figure out what the fuck I take away from this, because honestly, it's kind of just evolved into chaos. My brain is not doing great right now. So you got Mamma Mia the Musical, 1999. I'm gonna say I put it right here. The musical is honestly, once you've seen the movie, the musical is kind of disappointing. Speaking of which, our very last card. It's Mamma Mia the movie, 2008. Very tacky. Very deliberate. Oh, here it comes. It goes right up here. All right. So let's have a look at the finalized thing. So we're seeing, honestly, it's kind of making like, I feel like a weatherman, like an X formation. Just the hell zone over here. Let's see. So I think the stuff that I can love wholeheartedly is really in the deliberate camp, it knows what it is, tacky affectionate corner, which is not surprising. I love things in the camp naive section, but there's just less examples, which is also because I wrote less examples. They didn't come to mind. But like all of this is stuff I have affection for, but this is the stuff I can really sink my teeth into. I wonder if that comes with like the feeling of like guilt, where I can like it because I know they know it's dumb and they know it's a bit, and so I can enjoy it in the same time. However, people like down here, I think the difference between things I find tacky and affectionate and things I find tacky derogatory at this end with the deliberate camp is that over here, it's people having fun. It's people enjoying it. Down here is like exploitation, people being bastards, just ugly shit in terms of troll dolls. Missing the point if you're talking about Carly Kloss. Like this corner around here, Thomas Kincaid, Jeff Koons, Toddlers and Tiaras and Glee, is really like, it feels condescending. You know what I mean? It feels like someone's like, oh yeah, you bastards will eat this shit up. It doesn't matter if it's garbage. Whereas up here, it's like a genuine love of the game. It's genuine love of just the absolute batshit insanity. Is it also perhaps interesting to note that a lot of the people up on this corner are queer? I mean, I'm going to say it. I'm not going to say anything else about it. And Camp Naive is harder to describe. If I had put all the movies I can think of that go into Camp Naive, like it would have just been like a really long list. I kind of put the Rocky Horror Picture Show as a stand-in for most of those, but you have things like Hard Ticket to Hawaii, Miami Connection, Manos, The Hands of Fate, kind of any movie Mystery Science Theater has done, or Riff Tracks, kind of go in Camp Naive. Interestingly, I forgot, I didn't put The Room. I would have put it in, well, it's hard because I have affection for The Room. However, I have read The Disaster Artist, and Tommy Wiseau is kind of a bastard. So I might put it in derogatory. Definitely naive, though. So maybe in this corner. I love that Glee is just next to the French monarchy. This is the way my brain works. This is, yeah, like the... honestly, this is kind of like a nostalgia section of things I loved that were trying to do something, but aren't super successful, you know? Yeah. Did I learn anything here? Did we learn anything? I mean, what I learned is kind of things that appeal to me the most are at the extremes. Oh, shit. So, here we are. I've made this. My brain is melting a little bit. What can we take away from this? So I sat on it, and what I kind of want to come to as the conclusion here is that for enjoyment's sake, it doesn't need to be naive or deliberate to be enjoyable. What it really comes down to is if the person doing it is coming from a place of sincerity and love, and if they are kind of abusing other people to get where they are. So things can be camp on purpose or camp not on purpose, but if they are created to make fun of someone or to make a profit, they're automatically going to be less enjoyable. They're not going to be as fondly remembered, I think, in the long term. And that's kind of what I want to take away with here is you can be, tacky on purpose or not. You can be camp on purpose or not. Kitsch literally covers the whole spectrum, but people will remember you fondly long term if you do it out of pure love of the game, pure love of what you do, rather than making a quick buck or using your power to push down other people. And in that way, I kind of see camp as a positive thing because it remembers people long term for the sincere love of whatever they made. And history does not necessarily remember people who do something artificial out of a sense of profit. And even if they are remembered like Lord Byron, they're not necessarily remembered positively. Like Lord Byron is primarily remembered as a fuckboy. And, not to threaten Jeff Koons, but I'm not sure how he'll be remembered either. And Thomas Kincaid, honestly, I feel bad when I see something like that, where you could have had a legitimate argument about whether or not his art was valid from a long-term perspective, but the fact that his estate seems to only view his value as a name to sell more products, it does kind of hint to me that even they don't necessarily see him as an artist in his own right. So history will remember you if your camp is sincere, even if it's, not intentional. Sincerity is what wins in the end. And it's kind of like that thing for parody where the best parodies are done out of love for the original genre, not because you hate it and you want to make fun of it. So, thank you. That's all I got to say today. I have a bunch more video ideas coming up. Honestly, this was supposed to be a quick, short video, and then it turned into a nightmare of reading essays and articles and a lot to educate myself because I never want to speak on a topic finally without having done some searching beforehand. So, thank you. Subscribe if you're interested in this kind of weird, rambly topic. I do have some shorter videos planned, I swear to God. But yeah, thank you for being here. All right, bye.
I got boxes full of PEPE!